Randy Robison and Life Today TV on the road in St. Louis, ICRS convention, talking to one of the most successful Christian fiction writers out there today. Ted Dekker is with us. Ted, dude, good to see you.
Good to be with you, Randy.
You ready for the tour?
I'm ready for the tour.
Okay, good. Outlaw is your latest novel. Give me a quick synopsis, kind of what we're looking at here.
Outlaw is really interesting because, you know, I was born the son of missionaries in the jungles of Indonesia. They left this culture and they went to a tribe in Indonesia, middle of the jungle, cannibals, and contextualized the gospel for those people. And in a way, I've kind of left the jungle of my youth, and I've come to this culture, and I speak in the language of this culture, really the good news of the gospel, but through story. Outlaw is a story of a young boy who goes missing, a baby, in the middle of the jungles of where I grew up. And it's a wild, totally transformational story about his life in the jungles of Indonesia and his mother, whose name is Julianne, and the great price that she pays to find and recover him. But it's a thriller, and it's massively transformative. So in a way, it's kind of my own story. I'm really excited, but very different than anything I've written before.
Yeah.
Very, very spiritual, but with nail-biting intensity all the way through.
You're gonna keep people up at nights again?
Oh, well, my books tend to do that, but this one is also very, very culturally rich. Because, I feel like it's very, very important to understand the people, the language of the people that you're talking to or writing for in order to connect with them. I'm sure you're aware of this, but we have this problem right now in the church. And that is that, say, 58 to 59% of young adults or young Christians, we'll just call them the younger generation, between the age of 16 and 40 have left the church in the last decade, most never to return. And you have to ask yourself, it's a wholesale exodus. The question is why? And I believe it's because they're not hearing the gospel in their own language. Their language is one that is vulnerable, authentic, and very relative to their life situation. They're not hearing that for some reason. I'm not blaming churches.
I'll tell you one reason.
Why?
What I see in this generation that's kind of your 20-ish is they're actually not as self-centered as maybe their parents might have been.
Yeah.
And a lot of the gospel has gotten very self-centered.
Yeah.
And it seems to be all about me. But they're like, how can I change the world for good? There's an element of that that I see.
There's a disconnect.
Yeah.
The bottom line, there's a disconnect, and so they slip out the back door and they look for a place where they can be more authentic, and where they can be more vulnerable and connect with people that are like them.
So what are you gonna do about it?
Well, I am one of them. I have been one of them.
Okay.
And I see now that, my stories actually reach out to those people. I've sold, I think that 8 million actually, they tell me that 30 million people have read my books. That's a lot of people. They spend over 200 million hours reading my books. Because it takes 6-7 hours to read.
That's gotta be humbling.
It's craziness. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But why? And mostly those younger people, 85% of my audience is between the age of 16 and 40. It's that generation that is leaving the church. And they're not leaving it because they're reading my books. No. Somehow, for some reason, I connect with them because I write in a very authentic way.
Yeah.
I don't write to communicate a message as much as to ask questions, and then I explore those questions through story, through parable.
Right.
I write modern day parables. And people come along and they read their stories and they connect because they say, oh, this is authentic, this is real, this feels real to me. And I think that my stories are connecting with people, but I think for the first time now I am going out, I'm going to start going out to churches and bringing the gospel, the good news. Oh my goodness, the good news of Jesus is mind-blowing. We think we know it. If we knew but for a moment how our Father saw us, if we saw truly through His eyes us, the fact that He has cast as far as the east is from the west any fault from us, we would flee all the vain imaginations and wild fantasies of what we think this world can offer us and rush to His table. because he accepts us like no one else can possibly. But instead, we're in fear of him, and we can never quite measure up. And we have these crazy thoughts that if people knew who I was, they wouldn't accept me.
Right.
Everyone feels that way, especially the younger generation.
Yeah.
They don't feel like they're really accepted. Well, the good news is you are completely accepted by your Father. You just don't know who He is and who you are
In Him.
in Him.
Yeah.
But in Him is who you are. You know, we like to tack on these words just to make sure we're right theologically, but we are in Him now.
If we're in Christ and Christ is in us, when God the Father looks at us, who does He see?
He sees
Christ.
He sees Christ, but He sees us.
In us.
He sees Christ in us and us in Christ, but He sees us. He sees Ted Dekker, and He sees no fault. The Father does not judge.
Yeah.
He sees no fault. It's like the kind of unconditional love that a father might have for his own son in this earth. You take that times 1 billion, and this is how our Father sees us, without any reservation. It's there's much more to it that, but we always have this idea, young people especially, that okay, I get it, that's all very esoteric, but the bottom line is I don't measure up. I'm not good enough. I can never live up to the standard given me by the church. And so they leave. That's primarily why they're leaving. And it's very easy to do that through stories. Stories are a very powerful medium. So I'm going to be doing that on the road through the Outlaw tour in the next few weeks.
How do people find that if they want to see where you're at?
Just go to teddekker.com.
Okay.
And we'll be hitting 20 major cities.
All across the US?
All across the United States.
Taking a big bus or something?
Big bus, big bus, yeah.
Book cover or your face on the side, you doing that kind of deal?
Big wrapped bus,
wrapped
Outlaw on it.
Nice.
You know, I wasn't terribly excited
blog
about
on the road?
What's that?
It looks cool though.
It looks cool.
It looks cool. You going to blog on the road or anything crazy like that?
Yeah, we'll be blogging from the road and talking about it a lot. I'm just really excited to go out there and connect with the people and love them. Because the language of the heart, the younger generation, they would say that their language is more about the heart than the mind. You know, it's more about love than the law.
Yeah.
It is outlaw. It is outlaw. In an outlaw, we are no longer bound by that law that once brought death. We're instead alive in Christ. What does that really mean? Not just as theology, but what does that mean about me right now? And it's like, I mean, when I communicate this to someone and I see their eyes go, oh, that's too good to be true.
Yeah.
But what if it's not? What if it's true? What if it's not too good to be true? Really? Yeah. And suddenly it's like, whoa, well, that's what it means to be a Christian? Yeah. Oh my God, I mean, it's beautiful.
Wow, you're ready to preach. Don't be afraid.
I'm not.
You're ready.
I'm not preaching. I'm just sharing my heart.
Yeah, but you are. I mean, not the way maybe you think of preaching, but all preaching is sharing the good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ, and that's what you're doing. So crank it up, baby. Okay, I have this strange question that I wanted to ask you.
Okay.
Because, people have called you, the Stephen King of Christian books. I just say that Stephen King is the Ted Dekker of secular books. But what are the things that scare you, that keep you up at night?
Well, I'll tell you what. The things that scare me, not very little actually scares me or frightens me. But the things that keep me up at night are fear of failure, fear of...
Dude, you're hugely successful, though.
It doesn't matter. It's not about failure in terms of my career. I'm not talking about that.
Okay.
But just not failing as a human being, as a father, of like, the fear that... And I don't suffer from this much anymore.
Okay. And that's my next question is, how did you handle that? How do you overcome that?
Well, the perfect love casts out fear. When we understand who we are and how our Father, that I am the son of my Father.
Yeah.
And I have made from His fabric. And nothing can threaten me anymore. I am essentially invulnerable.
Nothing can separate you from His love.
Nothing can separate me from His love or from Him any more than a ray of light can be separated from the sun. I am one with God. Yeah? In other words, I am seated at the right hand of my Father. Now, that casts out, understanding his love casts out all fear.
Yes, it does.
Perfect love casts out all fear. It's the only thing that does. Essentially, in life, there's only two emotions. There's love and there's fear. And love isn't really an emotion, it's a state of being. So all other negative emotions or fears at night, I mean, I've written a lot of dark novels. And I've always said, look, I like going into the valley of darkness to discover that death is only a shadow. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. So I take myself and the reader up against those forces of darkness in real, authentic situations that kind of are scary, only to see them as shadows, to walk through them, not run away from them, walk through them, and to see the light beyond. And I write, over and over. I've written a number of dark novels that way. I've written 36 novels, and maybe 10 of them are darker. Many of them aren't dark. They're just wild adventures and they're crazy stories.
You can tell what I'm drawn to.
It's beautiful to actually be able to face your fears.
Yeah.
It's the people that are afraid to walk into that valley that will always be afraid of it. You see what I'm saying? You'll always.
Right.
In fact, life will always take us into dark times. This is part of a seed falling to the ground and dying for new life to come. It's why a fire comes to a valley and rages through it. And in the midst of that fire, we think, oh, this is terrible. This natural disaster is ruining all the vegetation. But out of that fire comes new growth. It's nature's way of cleansing the valley. In the midst of the suffering, in the midst of that dark valley, it feels, but we get to trust our Father. He's bringing new life in us. He always does. So it's not a good thing to be afraid of the darkness. It's okay to walk through it and find that He's there through the darkness.
Light to our feet, a lamp to our path.
Yeah.
Even in the darkest times.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Dude, thanks for sitting down, and check out teddekker.com. See when he's coming near your city. Read Outlaw if you haven't read it already. And dude, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you just taking the time to just chill out and let me hear your heart. And
this is fun.
I
like your heart.
When you come to Dallas Fort Worth, you come see me.
I'll
come find you.
I'll come see you anytime you want.
It's over. Okay.
Thanks a lot, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.